A client told me that she couldn't move breakfast. Not that she didn't want to, that she couldn't. She was really hungry all the way through the day. It was a 14-hour eating window. She trained after work, not hitting her calories, but at the same time, also feeling really hungry and now really frustrated. So to me, moving breakfast was the obvious choice. And when I mentioned it, the real problem showed up. The struggle that you guys have with fat loss isn't always about calories. It's the rules that you set for those calories.
The point I'm trying to make with this video is that there are things that you can do that are practical that will enable you to make better progress, spend less time and energy worrying about being hungry and obviously the planning and organization, but more importantly, get better results with, I would say, a simpler process, something that actually adds to your life rather than takes away from it. A lot of people have to diet on a lot lower calories than they would expect, possibly including you. The amount that we want to lose is often a lot more than we think we need to lose in order to look the way that we want to look. That often means we have to eat a little bit less than what we want to do. Before we go into this, it's absolutely imperative that you understand that this is a choice. Dieting is a luxury. And I'm not going to, preach to you about this, but the fact that we have the option to choose to eat less in order to choose how we live and how we look is a privilege. And it's something that I often remind myself and my clients when we're going through this, yes, it is hard. Dieting is a tough process, but it is still ultimately a choice and no one's making you do it. So remember that this is a choice before we go in thinking, oh God, I'm always hungry. Like, don't be hungry then, don't do it. So a lot of the clients that I have will have schedules set up in this pie out here. So this is something that we actually use with our clients, something to look at. I want to know what their work schedule's like, when they're going to train. I want to know, obviously, their sleep habits, things like that. But today we're going to be focusing more on the actual setup. I'm actually basing this off one of my clients, Jamie. This little meal plan bit is something that I just put together a minute ago, just to give you an idea. Jamie was saying that when they train at night. And they have breakfast really early. So they get up and they have breakfast around 7 o'clock. And then they have their last meal at around 9 o'clock at night. They're really bloody hungry. Okay. They're struggling a little bit with fat loss and they're struggling with how to conceptualize where we can make meals bigger, because every time they eat a meal, it kind of feels a little bit like it's not quite enough. It's not really hitting the spot. So they're hungry. And then because we're hungry, food focus goes up. And when food focus goes up, obviously our inhibitions get a little bit louder, and it doesn't take much to really break down the process that we are in. When I spoke to her last week about this, one of the things that we were really trying to get to the bottom of is what is necessary for us in this process. If we are really, really honest about the level of results that we want, it is going to change how we set this up. So what I said to her was this: why don't we take your breakfast and push it back? What is stopping us actually moving this 7:30 meal and having it here? You could still have the coffee in the morning if you wanted to. I'm not going to ruin your life there. First thing she said was, that is just not possible. And I said, why is that not possible? And she said, because I have to have breakfast in the morning. Okay, why do you have to have breakfast in the morning? Oh, it's just the thing I do when I get up, isn't it? Okay, but why don't we explore not doing that thing? Ooh, I don't know if I can do that. And this is a conversation I regularly have with clients. If you haven't succeeded in achieving something yet, and we are offering a workaround that's really quite feasible to achieving that thing, why would you not be willing to try it? And that's where we have to look deeper. And that's what our coaching does. I want to understand what the attachment is to you and breakfast. Why is breakfast a symbol of something you absolutely need? And if we can get to the bottom of that, then we start to realize why food may be playing such a massive part in your lifestyle. But what we're battling here is a habit. What we're battling here is routine. It's environment. So what we need to do is ask how we change the habit, because there is nothing special about breakfast. How do I shorten the eating window to make things easier, to make things more comfortable, and to make my calories go further? For most people who are having breakfast at 8 and tea at 6, that's a 10-hour window. We're dealing with breakfast at 7 and dinner at 9. That's a 14-hour eating window. Throughout that 14-hour day, you are continually thinking, eating, and digesting food. To wonder then why it is you have such high levels of food focus probably isn't that baffling, right? So what we are working on now is the relationship she has to breakfast. So we're looking at noticing signs. What I want you to do is I want you to set yourself up tomorrow to think about not having breakfast. And before you go out the door, before you do anything, I just want you to start to notice if there's any anxiety, if there's any stress, or if there's anything that your body is particularly telling you, and focus on that. Because that is what is going to tell us why breakfast is so important. Because it's not the calories, and it's not probably the food. It could be the fact that you have something for breakfast that's so enjoyable that it's something you really look forward to and it picks you up in the morning. Well, that's fine. We're not getting rid of it. We're just moving it. So we now have a 550 calorie breakfast that occurs here, and we've removed these. This now feels like a bit more of a substantial meal. If any of you have ever done intermittent fasting before or time restricted feeding, you'll know that when you don't eat in the morning, it's less food focus. You often feel a bit more energized because a lot of people tend to have really high carb, dense meals for breakfast. And to be honest, if you think about it, you've just done nothing for 8 to 10 hours. Do you really need a load of food at that point? Probably not. What the body wants to do is get moving, because obviously we're built as people who would hunt food and gather food, not just have it in front of us. So the body wants to move, right? That's why we get such high cortisol levels in the morning. It's energizing. For Jamie, in her diet, we're looking at eating 1,800 calories as it stands. And now this is where she really struggles, because this is kind of what it looks like for her at the moment with these distributions. Then the question remains, is one of these a meal that we could give up? The answer to that question, I think, is yes, because there's a simple thing that we could do. Instead of having this post-workout, what I said to her is, don't have the protein shake first thing. Let's have the protein shake as the very last thing that we do. You don't need a big lumpy meal before you go to bed. And if we want some carbohydrate to go with that, then we could have something very simple like toast. It's very easy to digest. Already with a couple of tweaks to, this is her diet. I didn't give it, I don't do meal plans. You guys know that. This is me helping create something with her. So we have roughly 900 calories now left to use. As you might have noticed, other than the rice here, which I'm going to talk about in a second, we've not used a great deal of carbohydrate yet. What I actually said to her was, let's remove the rice from this lunch. We managed to bring this down to about 430 calories. So now we've made a little bit more room with carbohydrate. This snack here, I actually don't mind, because a lot of people do quite well with a bit of a pick-me-up around this point. Then we look at dinner, right? Well, what do we have for dinner? Because dinner isn't typical for her when she trains in the evening. Dinner is far more a pre-workout. Well, what do we want for pre-workout? Well, this is where I was saying to her, this is where that rice can come in. I'd be having a really heavy carb meal here. And so that could be your, pasta dish, pasta bakes, those kinds of things where there's lots of those carbohydrates. What we've worked on here is taking somebody who had a 14-hour eating window, and we've condensed that into what is essentially 11. So we've cut 3 hours. This would be the stage one, because not many people want to jump straight to it. If I had somebody who did want to jump straight to it, what I would do is I would add some cheese and some fats into this, which would make the lunch come to about 600. That means we've still got 150 calories left to play with. And this is where we would put them in here, 350, and we would go protein shake, carbs, dinner. Because then we've got a really high carb here. We've got a nice high carb and high protein post meal as well. So this is how I would do it if I wanted to maximize my nutrition around a evening training session for somebody who's on low calories. And for a lot of the women I work with, most of them are between 1,300 and probably 1,600, to be honest. Some of them go a bit lower than that. So if you need lower calories than that, that's fine. You've all got different bodies. You've all got different shape. You've all got different lives and training. What I'm trying to get across here is that this is not the only way to do it. It is a fantastic way to do it that I've seen work for many, many clients and has been very effective over the years. I don't believe you need to do this if you're at maintenance, and it probably isn't helpful if you're gaining, because if you're gaining, you want a bigger eating window so you don't feel so full. I really hope that this has helped you just give an idea as how we would do this, and kind of how I've helped Jamie to reconstruct her day and her calories to facilitate something that's far more manageable. She feels more full, she feels more energized, and her training isn't a slog at the end of the day now. It's something that actually she can put her effort into and know that she still has some calories to play with at the end when she comes home and she wants some good recovery.
The point here isn't that everyone should skip breakfast. That's just lazy coaching. The point is that if we want to make fat loss easier and more straightforward, we need to build a lifestyle and a structure throughout our day that doesn't just allow us to go through the fat loss phase with better levels of commitment and adherence, because obviously that's what gets the result. But it's about going through the fat loss phase in a way that sets you up for what happens after that fat loss phase. Because if what we do now only works to get the result, but doesn't work within the scope of our lifestyle, then what we're fundamentally doing is creating a result that's only due for a phase. We're not creating a lifestyle that maintains a result. So if what we're doing now is that important, we need to find a way that means we can do it each and every day so we can maintain the result that we get, because else the result will be temporary. And something I always try and stress with my clients is just because something feels very rigid and absolutely non-negotiable, sometimes that's because we've actually just never questioned it. And it's when we question it that the part of our brain goes, absolutely not. But that's usually because it's defending the importance of that thing to you. And if we're talking about breakfast, that could be comfort in the morning when you're tired. It could be a safety meal. It could be that you really look forward to your favorite cereal in the morning because you actually eat a really restricted lifestyle, and that's the one rule, that's the one thing you're allowed, is that lovely bowl of cereal you have in the morning. And that to you represents restriction. If I remove that, I remove everything that says I have freedom with my meal. So it's not always the calories or the macros that produce an issue around food or around dieting. It's the rules. It's the things that we have that protect us in place. And it's why those things are important that we try to get to the bottom of, because when you do, you start to unpack why it is that you stay stuck, because the things that keep getting in the way are there to actually protect you from whatever it is you're trying to avoid or just trying not to feel uncomfortable with. So if you're struggling with hunger, it's really important to question the structure of what you're doing and if that really does work for you, because structure is important. And as I've already said, if we can set in stone a good structure now, when we get the result, it's easier to maintain because the lifestyle is already there for you. If you are somebody who struggles with emotional eating, I'll pop a guide down below. It talks through my experiences with emotional eating and also my clients as well. And it gives you really practical tools that you can use to help you through that. And as always, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one, where we're going to be going through the main reason that I think what you're focusing on really isn't what's holding you back.